All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and this is probably one of my most highly requested videos to date. We're going to talk about B58 upgraded turbos. Now, this is going to be a two-part video series. So the first one, we're going to talk about hybrid turbos here today, but I'm also going to make a separate video on full frame turbos that I will have linked down in the video description once that video comes out. So stay tuned for more on that if you're looking at full frame turbo options. But in this video specifically, we're going to talk about hybrids. We're going to explain what a hybrid is, what I think about when I'm trying to pick out a hybrid turbo, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on a couple different hybrid turbo options out there to hopefully help you choose which one you want to go with. Now, first, let's talk about what a hybrid is, because I know a lot of you guys are going to be screaming at your screen, telling me that different turbos I'm mentioning aren't really hybrids. So to be clear, a hybrid turbo is basically a stock turbo that is modified to make more horsepower. Usually what they do is install a bigger compressor and exhaust wheel inside of the turbo so that it can flow more air. Sometimes they also bore out the compressor housing or the exhaust housing so that it can fit even larger wheels, or they redesign the wheels and use a couple different techniques to allow the stock sized and stock looking turbo to make more power. Now, the new trend in how things are going is a lot of companies are doing their own brand new cast units. So they create their own exhaust manifold, their own compressor housing, their own wheels, and put all of that together to create a brand new turbo. We still call them hybrids because they kind of represent the same thing and slot into the same space from a performance and, a styling or look aspect. But it is no longer typically a modified stock turbo. In many cases, it's a brand new turbo created from scratch. So that's where a lot of people will say it's not really a hybrid, it's just a stock location or stock frame turbo. Whatever you want to call it today, we're calling them hybrids. Now, my philosophy around picking a hybrid turbo, or really any turbo for the B58, is you usually want one rated for anywhere from 800 to 1,000 horsepower. And I know everybody isn't looking for 800 horsepower. I myself don't make 800 horsepower on my hybrid turbo, but picking a turbo in that range gives it the best drivability, as well as spool characteristics and just overall good performance paired with the B58 engine. So in my opinion, that is kind of like the sweet spot range for something that can make good power and is still fun to drive around on the street. For most people, I will tell you, especially on a stock engine and stock transmission, you want to stay around 600 to 650 horsepower and around 600 foot-pounds of torque. But over time, if you want more, you can always upgrade your transmission and add additional fueling and upgrades to build your car to handle more power without having to change the turbo. And the good thing is, unfortunately, most hybrid turbo companies don't do compressor maps. They don't go through the testing to develop them, but they give them pretty easy names to understand what their horsepower rating is. So if it's something 800, it's rated for 800 horsepower. If it's something 900, it's rated for 900 horsepower. Or a lot of times they'll use numbers in the name that represent dimensions on like the compressor wheel and stuff like that, very similar to what other companies like Garrett and Precision do with their full frame turbos. So that can kind of help you correlate a little bit as well. But yeah, usually that's where I think the sweet spot is. Like 800 to 900 is really good. And then some turbos I know that are supposed to be rated up to 1,000 can still drive really well. So yeah, with that in mind, we're going to jump into the list. Hopefully I covered the turbos that you guys are interested in, but if there is anything else I missed or something that you want to hear more about that I don't cover, leave a comment down below and maybe we'll be able to include that in a future video. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the conversation, and we have to start off with dynamic Autowerx because that is the turbo that I am running on my 340i. So for those that don't know, I have an UltraFlow X. That's kind of like their entry-level turbo, not really the smallest one they sell, but kind of the same, stage 2 offering that most companies have been offering as a baseline for a while. So kind of right in the middle of the range. I've made anywhere from 640 to 660 wheel horsepower, depending on fueling and stuff like that. And push to the limits, it can probably make around 700, maybe 750 with everything being perfect. Now, the turbo has been great in my experience. I really do like it. The only downside and regret that I have is I do wish I had gone bigger. So if we look at some of the options here, like for the Gen 1 B58, we can see that we've got the UltraFlow 6769, which is bigger. And then we've also got the 6969, which is kind of the newest one. And then the smaller version is the Hypercore. So that's the stage 1 turbo that just mounts inside of your stock turbo fold and then uses the stock exhaust housing and everything with an upgraded compressor housing. I always recommend a full replacement turbo so that way you can get the benefits of a higher flowing manifold, a bigger exhaust housing that improves spool and top end power. So for me, the Hypercore wasn't even a consideration, but I picked the Ultraflow X because I wanted good response on the street and good response on the track. What ended up happening is it's really snappy. Like, it's not really something that I expected with an upgraded turbo, and I know some people like that kind of response. But for example, when you're trying to beat on it on the street, you're going to have a lot more traction issues. It's also going to potentially put you at higher risk of, snapping a drive shaft or an axle or something, anything in your drivetrain that doesn't like really sharp response and really aggressive torque curves. It might not play well with this turbo. So I deliberately kept torque low to keep everything happy. But if you push it to its limits, it very well could overwhelm your system faster than a bigger turbo would. So for me and my driving style and how I like to enjoy my big turbo cars, I wish I went with either the 6769 or 6969, simply because it would make less heat at the same power. I could run it on pump gas like I do on track and have really nice, smooth torque output. When I'm going through a curve right now, if I barely tap the pedal, you can feel the torque shove hitting you from the back, and it can definitely upset the car. So I think it would be easier to drive and more fun to drive with a slightly bigger turbo, which again tends to my recommendation to look for a turbo in like the 800 to 1000 horsepower range. The 6769 and 6969 will probably make north of 800 or 850, maybe even 900 wheel horsepower in really good conditions. And so that's kind of what I would expect with those if you push them to the limit. But you can always run them at lower boost to keep it safe for your stock engine and trans, and then grow into it as you're looking for more power. So overall, I would say the turbos are good. My experience is I did have an issue when I first got the turbo. Granted, it was kind of like a pre-production unit. I was helping them test some stuff out, and my wastegate got stuck. But they had really good customer service. They replaced it for me, no issues. So from that standpoint, I tell a lot of people, I recommend them, because with aftermarket companies, they're going to have problems. Just like OEMs have problems, aftermarket companies have problems as well. Everything isn't going to be perfect, and you want somebody that stands behind their products. And so it was nice to work with a company that was able to fix it and send it back to me. Thankfully, I uninstalled and reinstalled everything myself, so I didn't have any like labor charges or anything. So basically a free fix for me. But yeah, overall, highly recommend this turbo. I think a lot of people have it now. A lot of people like it. It's really hard to go wrong with Dynamic Autowerx. So next we have to start talking about pure turbos, and obviously these guys are some of the biggest OGs in the game. They've been making turbos for everything, and they've been making turbos for the B58 before we even had tuning options. I don't know if you guys realize that, but the Pure Stage 2 came out before our DMEs were even unlocked. They just kind of said, hey, you guys look like you like to party. Here's a turbo upgrade. Figure out the rest later. Enjoy. So these guys have been doing it for a long time. And like some companies, they started off doing like the full hybrid thing where you would send them your stock turbo and get it modified. Now they do the cast units, and Dynamic Autowerx does that as well. So you can get a brand new turbo without sending in a core or anything and get one of their different options. Now, they work great. I've seen a lot of people have great results with the Pure, especially when they went from the Pure Stage 2 to the Pure 800. They did a lot of upgrades to the turbos to make it more reliable and more efficient. But with the new cast units, they kind of just went crazy. And I mean, you can see it on my screen. For Gen 1s, you can get either a 600, a 650, an 800, or a 900. And that's just for Gen 1. If you look for Gen 2, it's even worse. You can get a 600, a 650, an 800, and a 900. And actually, I think it's missing a couple because I've also seen a Pure 700 and I've seen a Pure 850. And so I have some people reaching out to me and saying, should I get a 600 or a 650? Should I get a 650 or a 700? Should I get an 800 or an 850 or a 900? There's just no need for this many options, honestly. That's probably my biggest frustration, is a lot of people trying to figure out which one they want. Now, for me, I would still go with the tried and true Pure 800. I just think it works great. It's right at that middle ground. You can get an 850, but it kind of depends on the price. I mean, if it's significantly more expensive, I probably wouldn't go for it. But if they have a sale or something where it's only maybe 100 or 200 bucks more expensive, then I might go for that option as well. I would only go with the cast units at this point because those are the ones that have the bigger exhaust housing. They have the bigger ports on the turbo manifold, so everything about it's just going to flow better, it's going to work better, and you can keep your stock turbo, so you can always sell that to get some money back or save it for when you want to go back to stock to sell the car. So like I said, 800, maybe 850 with the cast turbo, that would be my personal choice. The Pure 900 is the biggest one that they offer, but keep in mind this doesn't work with a lot of stock components. I didn't realize that until some people that were using it reached out to me and told me like they can't make it work with the stock intake and it requires a catch can and deletes a lot of things that the other turbos don't. And so it's just something to consider. It's basically a much bigger investment to make that work. So there are some things that just aren't compatible with it. So an 800 or an 850 would probably be the biggest that I would go with. And if you go with a Pure 900, just expect to have to do a little more work and probably buy some more supporting mods in order to take advantage of it. The other thing is I know in the past some people have had issues with the wheels getting damaged. That has been kind of hit or miss. And again, Pure is a great company that stands by their products. So if you do have any issues, reach out to them. And every time I've seen them basically cover it under warranty. So, you know, 99% of the time you won't have any issues. And if you are one of the rare unlucky cases, you should be able to get it resolved with them, no problem. Now, the next company I want to talk about is Turbosystems. And this is a company that I want to bring up because I have no experience with them. I've never owned a Turbosystems turbo, but I have only heard good things about them. And the challenge is they're in Europe, and a lot of the people that run their turbos are in Europe. So you don't really hear a lot about it in the US. But I'm really hoping that somebody will go out on a limb and try out one of these options because it's comparable to like a Pure or a Dynamic Autowerx turbo. They have a stage 1, stage 2, and a stage 3 offering. The only difference is these are still like OG hybrids. So you send them your stock turbo, they modify it, and then send it back to you. Or you pay the core fee and send your stock turbo after you install the upgraded turbo. But I've heard great things about these. I think they are very efficient. They work really well. And again, these guys stand behind their products. So it seems like a really good option. If you check out anybody like in the UK or like I said, different parts of Europe and stuff, there are a lot of people running like a turbo system stage 2 or stage 3 with really good results. So personally, I'd probably go with the stage 3 just because it would give you the most bang for your buck and it comes with everything that you would need to install it, including like the intake pipe. So you would be able to put that on your car and enjoy. And it seems like it's really reasonably priced. So hopefully this motivates somebody to try them out and share some results. I'm curious to know if it's just some secret sauce that they have over in Germany and everything, or if we can make them work over here as well. And just to mention, they also have Gen 2 options. So you can see it comes with a replacement that fits with your intake pipe and works just like all the other hybrids. Again, stage 1, 2, or 3, depending on your goals. Like I said, I'd probably just go with a stage 3. Now, next up, I want to talk about Remnant Performance. And I know some of you guys have asked me about this turbo, and a few of you have actually installed one. But this is one of those that I think seems like a really great turbo. You just don't really hear about it that much. It is probably the biggest turbo that I've seen that's designed to fit in kind of this stock location hybrid setup. And when I test fitted one or like, you know, the 3D printed design on my car, I was surprised at how large it is. This is genuinely a huge turbo. And this company already made turbos and they basically just tried to retrofit one of their full frame turbos in a B58 style exhaust housing. So that's why it looks the way that it does. Granted, it is pretty expensive compared to some of the other hybrid options, but it comes with a lot. You can see it comes with like its own intake and charge pipe and everything to adapt essentially the full frame turbo to the rest of the B58 hardware. So I think it is a pretty cool option. I haven't seen any crazy numbers or anything from it, so I think it's still kind of limited by the hybrid or stock location design, but it is another really cool option that, as you see, comes with a lot of additional hardware. And I think that is attractive to a lot of people that just want a complete solution. So something else to look at. If you haven't heard about it, hopefully this puts it on your radar. Follow their social media and you'll see more of the details on it. Now, this wouldn't be a turbo video if we didn't talk about the Vargas game changer. And unfortunately, this is just one that I can't really recommend. They have been making turbos for a long time. Just think they were probably the second company to come out with a hybrid turbo right behind Pure, at least in my line of sight. So these have been out for at least 5 or 6 years. The main thing is I have seen a lot of people have failures with them. So sometimes the wheels get damaged or just different things. I know eventually they changed the turbo design to add these colored wheels so you can tell exactly like what turbo you get, but it also makes it very obvious if somebody has a problem, because if you post a picture of a damaged turbo and the blades are anodized orange, it's pretty obvious that it's a Vargas turbo. So that might just make it like more visible to people. But also I do see a lot of people having problems with these turbos. The other thing that really frustrates me is their warranty. So if you look at their warranty page, you can see that they specify that these parts are only designed for off-road use. So it says these parts are legal for use in competition racing vehicles as designed by or as defined by California law, and they're not, approved for any other motor vehicle, blah, blah, blah. All this normal stuff where people say off-road use only. That's perfectly fine. But if you scroll down a little bit more, it says that the warranty is void on all products found to have been used in racing or off-road applications. So what's the point, guys? If it's only made for racing and off-road use, but using it in racing or off-road use voids the warranty, that's pretty much a no-go for me. That completely takes it off my list. Now, I've seen their explanation for this, and a lot of it surrounds the fact that things like bad tuning and abuse can cause a turbo to fail. And so they're not just going to replace every blown turbo. And I definitely understand that. But you can put that in better wording or like clearly define what is covered under your warranty and what isn't. When you just say that any car that has used your turbo for racing is not going to be covered under warranty anymore, I don't think that puts you in the right frame of mind for other enthusiasts that are interested in using your products for racing. Every single turbo that people put on their car is going to be used in racing. And so if that's going to void the warranty, then again, that's just not something I'm interested in. So just be aware, I guess, for people that are interested in this. I know some folks will tell me they've had great luck with theirs. They've had it for 45 years, and the only thing it's done is got bigger and badder, and that's perfectly fine. But something like this just, again, makes it a no-go for me. Now, the last thing I want to address are the discussions around Alibaba turbos, China turbos, AliExpress turbos, whatever you want to call it, and basically correlating them to some of these hybrid turbo options. And what I can say is every company that I've talked to or work with does not go onto Alibaba or go to any company in China, order turbos, and then just resell them to you for an additional fee. That does not happen. A lot of companies do use Chinese suppliers for some of their components. And what we've seen over the past couple years is those suppliers will either take it upon themselves to get other components to assemble a full turbo, or they will just make up a brand new turbo and try to copy the design of what these companies are already making. And that's pretty unfortunate. It kind of is what it is. I don't think Chinese copies of products is anything new to this industry, much less any other, but it is something that's creating a lot of confusion. So I do see a lot of value in working with a company that goes through the R&D and development to create a turbo. Like I said, I myself have worked with companies on design and development to create a turbo for our cars. And if another company just rips off of it and starts selling it for a cheaper price, I'd rather not support them, because they're not going to put in any energy in the next platform to keep these things moving. So suffice it to say, if you do want to go with an Alibaba turbo, that's definitely up to you. Some people have had good luck, some people have not. It really just depends on the supplier. And it's also going to be a lot harder to work with a lot of these international suppliers. Either it's hard to get a hold of them, or shipping and other details are going to make it a much more cumbersome process. So for me, I usually try to shop locally for these kinds of products, and especially those of you guys in Europe that have crazy taxes and stuff. I 100% understand working with local options in Europe to try to get your turbo fix. But yeah, Alibaba is kind of its own thing. I don't really entertain conversations that claim companies are just buying Alibaba turbos and selling them to you. That's not the case. That's actually a big reason why a lot of these cast turbo options are coming out, because these companies are going to new suppliers to make the manifolds and casting their logos into it just to protect their IP, so they can show you this is an authentic unit that we have made, not something else that somebody just kind of etched our name into to try to sell it to you. So again, it is what it is. That's just kind of the way the industry works, but at least be aware if you're going with one of those turbo options that it is its own thing, that you will have to work with those suppliers in order to get any support. So yeah, a lot to talk about today. There are a lot of different hybrid turbo options, and even all these years later, there are still new companies entering the market. So like I said, if there's one that you're interested in that I didn't cover, leave a comment down below and I can look into it and potentially make an additional video on hybrid turbos in the future. But I think we have a lot of great options already. And as always, I recommend waiting for Black Friday if you can. If you're not in a rush to get fast for the last 2 months of the season, look out for deals on Black Friday. You'll get really nice options for really good deals, and then you can install it over winter and have way more fun next spring. So we'll talk about this more as always on my cars. I try to keep you guys up to date on the latest and greatest. So I'll let you know how things are going with my 340i, if any other issues come up, and what my performance looks like. But for now, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.